It's been such a slow couple of weeks. It's really getting kind of boring, but I have some cool news right off the top. We have folks over here on the TikTok who have come over to the YouTube and they have subscribed, and I promised them some shout outs. Budsy Girl jumped in there, gave me a subscription. Then we got Gatter. Emily jumped in there as well, and then Who Me. So if you guys want to come on over to the YouTube, give me a subscription. I would really, really appreciate it. We got a lot going on over there. I got Juan, oh my God, behind the screens over there, making things happen on Right America Media or ramtv.live if you want to check us out over there. But I would love for you to come on over to Here's My Two Cents on the YouTube. Tap that screen if you're over there, if you're over here. Start writing me some messages. Juan will stay on top of it, and we'll get to talking. I went live on the TikTok beforehand. I wanted to know what people wanted to talk about because, yes, there is actually a lot going on. And the banks is a big one. People are scared, and that's genuine. We're going to talk about that. And then what's going on in Ukraine, people are scared, and that's genuine. So let's do the second part there first. Dirty DC in the house. You the man. Keep it coming. Keep it going. If you're over here on the YouTube, then get on over here to the, I'm sorry, if you're on the TikTok, come on over to the YouTube. Emily, there you are, here from Tiki Taki. You are the bestest. I don't care what anybody says about you. You're fantastic. I had someone over here on the TikTok say to me, because we go live over here first, and they had, what's up, Becca? Becca is running my campaign for 2024, but keep these comments coming in. I love all of you. Someone had said, are we going to fight a war over what's in Ukraine? And I said, well, first of all, we're fighting a proxy war. That's just factually correct. Go back to when this kicked off last year. You could find the video of it on Here's My Two Cents on the YouTube. And I said, at least we're saying we're doing it rather than what we've done in the Afghanistan war, not our Afghanistan war, the Russians' Afghanistan war. We were funding that, and that was sort of payback from the Russians funding the Vietnam War and the Korean War most likely as well, and China was involved there as well. So at least we were saying that we were doing it. So some level of transparency. I'm not just out here to yell and scream that the administration is horrible and they've screwed up everything. We know that part. We know they've screwed up everything. But real quick, how do we like the new digs? We got a new, I'm a little excited. I haven't been around for a little while. We got the new digs set up. It's all lit up nice. I'm looking delicious. Okay, but we're back to the topic. Back to the nature at hand. Well, at least we said that we were going to be taking part in this. However, fast forward, the American people go, hey, where's that money going? And they are met with traitor, Putin lover, you're for the war, you're against the Ukrainians, you want these people to die. No, I want to know where the money went. And if you want to know where the money went, come on over to the YouTube. Here's My Two Cents. I would love to see you over there. You talk to me. Juan puts it up. It's super cool. Everybody loves it. And if you're going to stay over here, you tap that screen. We should be over 10,000. Folks want to know where the money went. I want to know where the money went. And if you want to know where the money went, you're a traitor. Hey, guess what? If you show me where the money went, maybe we can make the case that you need more. Did you ever think about that one? Yeah, you have thought about that one. And you know that's not going to be the case. So transparency is desperately needed here. And without it, when you have a void, when you create a gap, guess what it gets filled with? Thoughts, conspiracies, guesses, rumors. Sunlight. Tell us. Inform us. We have representative government. I can go to my representation. I could tell them based on my information, I want you to do X, Y, or Z. Should you not, I won't vote for you next time. Crazy ideas. I am 100% aware, but I want to try it. I think it's weird. I think it might work. I'm a little weird. Everybody knows that. You're weird if you stick around over here. Come on over to the TikTok. I'm sorry, to YouTube. Here's My Two Cents. Would love to see you. And if you stick around here, you should be tapping that screen. Folks want to know what's going on. People are getting scared. I make my jokes. We try to have some fun with it while we're here, but folks are legitimately getting scared. We just had one of our assets get taken down through reckless flying by pilots who were emboldened to do it. Love seeing you here. I'm here from Band Talk. Very cool. Love it. You are the best. Never would that government have been so emboldened as to fly near one of our assets. Never would that government have been so emboldened as to attack its neighbor when Trump was in office. We know that because that's factually correct. You can look it up. It has enough time has not passed that they can write new books and change history, because eventually they're probably going to try to say that some decisions that Trump did during 16 to 20 is what somehow then led to Putin then invading during Biden's term. If you say you're normal, then I'd be worried. Thank you. I am not normal. If you're here with me, then you're not normal. Melissa, are you normal? I don't think you're normal. None of us are normal. And we definitely don't know what we're talking about. We're definitely real people, though, and we have our real concerns, right? Oh, you're Budsy Girl. You're awesome. Thank you very much. Budsy Girl gave me that subscription tonight. We have folks who are getting genuinely and legitimately scared. And should they ask questions, they are then squashed. It kind of sounds reminiscent to when people were scared about the pandemic. If you asked questions, you were squashed. If you had worries about the vaccine, you were squashed. If you had worries about masking up our children, you were squashed. And then, of course, the joke came from it, and I think we ran with it too much. I know I did. What's the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth? About 6 months. I mean, it's kind of funny because it's true. Jokes are funny because they're rooted in truth. If you guys are over here, please, I got someone tell me you like me. Come on over to the YouTube. Tell me you like me there. Here's my 2 cents on the YouTube. Come on over. Normal is boring. Melissa, then I am the most interesting person you know because I am by far not normal. Man, you guys are just getting flying in here. I love it. All right, give me a little bit of time on. I know everybody's excited. Give me a little bit of time on these. Folks are getting scared about what's going on there because this government, this military is emboldened to continue to push. So let's talk about where we are. We've invested more money than I think we know. It's gone to things that we don't really know where it's gone. The assets have gone over who's operating them. You've heard me say this before. Here, my big one, who's maintaining them? How are we maintaining their supply lines and the like? How is intelligence being gathered and disseminated? All of these things are what goes into conducting wars, and they are doing extremely well against a very formidable foe. And you would have to think that there's a lot more of our involvement than we have said. Collecting intelligence, disseminating intelligence, giving action on or recommendations on actions that should be taken, also combining that with intelligence on how to get that done, giving them the assets, giving them who's using it, who's maintaining it, how are the supply lines all being done. Folks, that's something I haven't heard anybody else talking about it. Maybe it's because I'm the most handsome war hero, you know, which that might go to Juan. But Juan did all of his war heroing from the air. I was actually on the ground at some point. So I saw a little bit more fidelity as to protecting this country. Hey, Juan, listen, you did your part. We appreciate you. We do. He smiles from behind the camera. Listen, obviously, we joke amongst ourselves because we all embrace the suck. But obviously, flying is a little bit better than being in the sand. But I digest. Folks are genuinely getting scared. And that's kind of the theme of what's happening today. I didn't think that's what we were going to be talking about today, but when I went live with folks over here on the TikTok, but you should be over on YouTube, here's my 2 cents. Folks talk about how scared they are. Somebody then asked, well, if we're fighting this proxy war, could we ever have to fight that war on our soil? That's a genuine question by this person. This person felt the need to ask that question and nobody's answering that question for them. So they're asking me, and I'm a person and I have my finger on the pulse of what I can. I have my experiences that I draw from. I'm a fairly intelligent person and I can put one and one together to come up with two. And sometimes I'm not saying that this person who asked me a question isn't intelligent. I'm saying they don't have the same experience that I have. And I'm applying my experience and this person's applying theirs, and they're genuinely scared. And that is a reasonable place to be right now, as unreasonable as that is. Does that make sense? Robert, that's a whole lot. Putin bad, Trump good. We're going to go with that. That's a lot. You got to keep those messages short for me. We got a lot going on there. So the question was then asked, are we going to have to fight this war on our soil? No. Okay, folks, no. First of all, forward projection capability of everyone else on the planet is nowhere near what it is in the United States. Russia, probably the most formidable foe to project their power, can barely keep a war going on their border. All they have to do is drive the beans and bullets to the front, and they're having an extremely difficult time keeping their supply lines going and keeping the beans and bullets going forward. You want to talk about China and their world's largest navy? What you need to look at is their blue water navy, which is skimpy at best. What is a blue water navy? So when we talk about blue water navy, there's blue and brown water. Brown water is basically your ports and right off the coast. Pretty much you can go just past being able to see your coast and you can kind of sustain yourself. You have to constantly be replenished by the land. A blue water navy is what our navy is, that we are constantly forward projected 24/7, 365 in more ways than people know, in more locations than people know. We are always forward, and nobody else on the planet can do that. Nobody else can do that. You can have some level of it from the French, some from the British, and a very tiny amount from the Russians. And the Chinese don't have that forward projection capability. So just keep that in mind, folks. We have the Pacific to our west, we have the Atlantic to our east, and we're very, very blessed for that. We have the whole Western Hemisphere, which is entirely reliant on us. We're very blessed on that. We have lots of our own resources. We have the Canadians to the north, which are entirely dependent on us for their defense and their economy. So that's not going to be a problem. You have our border to the south, which again is extremely reliant on us. They can't seem to keep their crime and their drugs and their cartels under check, but at least they're not going to be invading other than just letting everybody traverse their country and go directly into ours. But again, that's another topic. This is really about trying to address people's fears. That war in Ukraine is not going to end anytime soon. What I would like to start hearing from leaders is, what does over look like? What does your version of winning look like? The Ukrainians, obviously, let's say it was your country and the Canadians just came over. I want them out. And in fairness, here in America, if you came into my country, not only do I want you out, I want what you have. But not everybody's America. Not everybody has that capability. Thou shalt not touch me. Not everybody has that. Of course, Ukrainians want all of their borders back. And hell, if I was a Ukrainian, I'd want to push in a little bit more, because how dare you? Then you have the Russians that have their reasons, which are invalid, and they're not going to want to give up what their gains are. So people need to start talking about what the end of this looks like. And I don't think that shows any weakness. I mean, it's a negotiation, so you're going to have to start with a lot more than you think you're actually ever going to get. But we at least need to start talking about it. Because right now, what this is doing to the American public, to the American economy, to our strategic abilities, we're really getting depleted here. And we're having to fund this. Has it kept Putin from completely taking over? Absolutely. He could have gotten Kyiv right off the bat. And then you're talking a whole different ball of wax at that point, right? And they didn't. That is because of our involvement. That is because of NATO's involvement. That is because of Europe's involvement. God bless Joe Biden. He's been the best president we've ever had. I mean, I don't know how you can argue with that. Johnny Fly. I really don't think you can argue with that. When has anyone seen a president go to active war zone? That fake air raid was so ridiculous. They had to ignore it after the first day because everyone knew how dumb that was. That was the dumbest photo video op I've ever seen, ever. There's no possible way that that siren was legitimate, because if you have the president of the United States and he catches a cold while he's over there and he could somehow say that it was caused by the Russians' air raid, then what are we looking at? I mean, I exaggerate to the nth degree there, but it's for a reason. They invade America, they have to deal with heavily armed rednecks, of course. That's why the Japanese actually never made landfall in the United States, because they said there was a gun waiting for them behind every tree. I believe I got that quote right. The Japanese said there's a gun waiting behind every tree. And that is absolutely fantastic, and what makes us one of the greatest nations on earth. Let me cap this, because we're going to go over to the banks here in about a minute. We need to talk about what the end of this looks like. We need to give transparency. And I think that conversations need to be had other than give them more. Because, and I was going to talk about this a second ago, I'm glad I remembered, we have absolutely depleted ourselves. That will then have to be replenished, not deplenished. For example, Biden's been tapping into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which nobody seems to want to talk about. Should we have to defend ourselves, we are at a disadvantage right now because we've been depleting our Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Not only will we have to buy it back at a higher cost than what we initially filled it for, but we are not positioned well because our Strategic Petroleum Reserve has been depleted, and then it has to be replenished at a higher cost. Next, we're talking about all the munitions, all the weaponry that we have sent forward. We don't have that anymore. We are not going to get that back. So our ability to conduct war has been diminished. This is all factually correct. And whomever is next is going to have to rebuild this military. And I'll guarantee you, mark it on this calendar, March 16th, 2023, 2 Cent said the next person who's going to try to replenish the military is going to get caught for spending too much money on the military. When the reality is, I can see the future, when the reality is they're replenishing everything that Biden stole when he stole from Peter to pay Paul. Eventually, that's going to have to get paid back, and it's going to get paid back and refilled and replenished at a higher cost. Mark it down. I'm always right. If you are all still over here, tap that screen. No reason we shouldn't be over 10,000, or come on over to the YouTube. Here's my 2 cents. I love you all. Thank you for being over here. Let's do a pivot. It's not a hard pivot because it's still based on fear. Also, on the comments when we were talking over here on TikTok, folks said, should I take my money out of the bank? And that then started a cascade. And that's actually the point. I said, of course, don't take your money out of the banks. Here's why. I'm not rich. You're not rich. FDIC, a lot of people forget this because we used to go into the bank. Do you remember this one? We used to go into the bank, and there was always a plaque right next to the teller. It was black, and in gold letters, it said FDIC insured up to $250,000, right? I read it a million times standing in line with my mom when she had to go cash a check or write a check or whatever she had to do, get a deposit done. Folks forget about that. Okay, so that's federally insured. Your 250,000 up to will be there. The reason that doesn't help with Silicon Valley Bank is they had hundreds of millions of dollars. 250,000 is a drop in a lake. It's not a drop in a bucket, it's a drop in a lake. Can you give a brief thought on House Bill 1240 assault weapon ban? You live in Washington. So check out KSOK Uncensored. She's in Washington. She talks about this all directly. She's on right before me at 7 o'clock. You can also find her on the TikTok. She gets a free plug. Juan, you make sure she knows. Look for her, KSOK. That'll come up. She's in Washington. She talks about this stuff very deeply. Please go over there and check that out. So this idea of the run on the bank. So the idea that somebody said, hey, should I pull my money out of the bank? And that triggered somebody else to do the same, to do the same, to do the same. I don't have a lot of money. You don't have a lot of money, but there's millions of us. And if millions of us want what money we do have now, that's a run on the bank, and that's going to cause the banks to fail. That's why Biden is doing everything that he's doing. I'm going to give him a pragmatic approach because I can't bring myself to give him kudos. I'll give him a pragmatic approach in that he is using language as best he can to instill confidence, even if it's a faux sense of confidence, because he doesn't want to spook people. That's the rhetorical side. When he came out on Monday and said, the words were very specific, your deposits will be there when you need them. Okay? Had he said right now, folks might have ran, they'll be there later, folks might have ran, they'll be there when you need them. That was a good use of language. I'm not going to give him kudos. Somebody wrote that to him. That's as close as I'm getting. That's as close as I'm going to get. Besides that, I want to talk about why they decided to use a backstop. There's no such thing as assault weapon. Someone needs to invent one. Well, then there's assault spoons, right? I mean, you can make a knife is an assault knife, right? Weapons of war. A knife is an assault is a weapon of war, right? But let's stick to the banks. There was an opportunity for the private sector to handle this or for the government to handle this. When that bank went from a good rating on Wednesday to failing on Friday, by Monday, there needed to be a sense of calm to keep a run on the banks from happening, because over the weekend, the third largest bank collapse in history happened. And now we're talking about dominoes falling. And in any catastrophe, it's a string of dominoes. And if you could pull one domino out, you can stop it all from falling. And that's what they were trying to do. So you had the private approach, which is to let the banks buy it up, or you had the public approach, which is to have the government take care of it. We're now starting to see, and it's too late because we can't affect it, we're now starting to see the larger banks, just like they did with Republic Bank today, were trying to buy SVB, but they got notified so late, they couldn't do anything by Sunday. The government stepped in to do it. Again, in absence of transparency and in a void, people's ideas are going to fail. My idea is Joe Biden saw a disaster, and his people said, Joe Biden and company saw a disaster, and they saw it as a way to make him the hero. Never let a crisis go to waste. So he could have given an extension, given some good rhetoric. He could have done a primetime address on a Sunday night and said, folks, we're working with the private industry, full faith and confidence that this will be taken care of on the private level. And we don't want to do this, but if we have to, the federal government's going to be able to step in. We have checks and balances in place. Your money will be there when you need it. He could have done that and kept a run on the banks from happening. But then the private sector is going to get the credit for coming in and taking care of things. And instead, like I said, they saw a crisis and they see an opportunity to make him the hero. So now he gets to show up on Monday morning and say, look, the government fixed it. The government fixed all of it. We're not going to talk about how this is a result of inflation. We're not going to talk about how that inflation is a result of overspending. We're not going to talk about how raising the rates to impact inflation is what then impacted this bank. We're not going to talk about how the Fed out on the West Coast wasn't watching them like they're supposed to be doing. We're going to take it as an opportunity to say that Joe Biden fixed it. The government fixed it. And oh, by the way, the problem was caused by Trump. And we're going to leave out that Democrats in the House and the Senate voted for it. We're going to leave out the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate and the White House for 2 years and did nothing about it. We're going to leave all that out. We have an opportunity to besmirch, to take a line from Hannity, to besmirch Trump and to make Biden look like the hero. I think that's exactly what happened over the weekend. Joseph is a disaster. You're correct. And if you ever hear him say Joey when he tells his anecdotes, hey, Joey, I'm sure his dad was a good guy, but whenever he invokes his dad in an anecdote, like he did when he supposedly had an epiphany about same-sex marriage back in black and white days, how senior year he saw two men kissing and his father said, what's the problem, Joey? They love each other. They love each other. So somehow that man had an epiphany in black and white days. But when he was a senator in the 70s, he was against it. He supported the Defense of Marriage Act in the 90s. And as a vice presidential candidate in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, he said neither he nor Barack supported gay marriage, but the man had an epiphany. So anyway, I digest there a little bit. Whenever he says Joey, he's full of it. He's absolutely full of it. Back to what's happening here, because we only got a couple minutes left. I think they saw a crisis and they saw an opportunity to bash Trump and to make Biden and the government look like saviors. I don't think they needed to do that over the weekend. I think what was going to happen with Republic Bank was already going to happen, but they saw it as an opportunity to make themselves look like the savior. I want to talk about a quick topic real quick, and maybe you all over here have heard it as well. The moral hazard. It's a term that's being thrown around a lot, and I know not everyone knows these details. What's a moral hazard? The moral hazard here is if you give bailouts, you remove consequences. So if you say, hey, bankers, go make decisions that either result in you making a ton of money or we're going to make you whole on the other side. Bank bailouts from 08 and so on, we're never going to go back to that. But in a sense, with FDIC only going to 250,000, which is a drop in a lake, they were then going to insure through a shell game. It's a shell game, making sure that the banks could pay the depositors. And they had an argument for that, which we're going to run out of time. Maybe we can talk about it next week. But the moral hazard is if you remove consequence, I'm going to be a backstop. We'll use their term that they're using now. If you remove consequence, then you actually incentivize people to do it again. If they don't have to worry about anything happening, then wouldn't they just be more risky? That's the moral hazard. So if you hear them talking about that term, that's what that means. If you take away responsibility and accountability, then it's going to entice folks to go ahead and keep doing that. I hope that makes sense, because they're just sort of throwing that term out there a lot. And listen, a lot of us are very busy people and we don't have time to really learn all this stuff. But you come here, you come to your boy. I'm going to give you jokes. I'm going to give you funny looks. We're going to talk. I'm going to give you a little bit of history, a little bit of anecdotes, and I'm going to teach you up. I'm going to learn you up just a little bit. No, Trump fixed what Obama did. Joseph Biden did everything Trump did. That is actually factually correct. That is factually correct. And we got it. We didn't really get to talk about a lot more other than that. But I was actually really glad to be back here. Thank you for everyone who has been here. Juan, do we have my graphics for the bottom? I'd love to see you folks over on the TikTok, 2cent_KSJ. I would love to see you subscribe over here. We had a lot of momentum going there for a little while. Here's my 2 cents. There I am. I'm back. That's okay, Juan. We'll get this going eventually. I would love to see the subscriber count going up over there. We're going to start pushing for that just a little bit more. It's great to be back. Listen, folks, your money, my money is going to be okay. There's hurt coming. It's going to get worse before it gets better. It's not over. The banks they're teetering, folks. That's real. But don't run on the banks. Your money is going to be there. Yes, it's a disaster. Yes, it's worse. I'm going to go a couple seconds over, Juan. I apologize. But with not Juan, we're going to get you back on time with all of that, everyone. I appreciate you being here. Have a good night.